So like my colleague said, I'm going to talk to you today about the CDMRP Neuroscience programs. I'll give you an overview of some of the neuroscience programs, and I'm also going to touch on some that I'm not going to go into detail about, but may also be relevant for some of the research that you're undertaking. So to start with, the neuroscience programs at CDMRP cover a wide variety of topics from autism to Alzheimer's, and they include neurofibromatosis and alcohol and substance abuse disorders. So I'm gonna, like Donna, I stole her great idea because it was a great idea. I wanted to give you a little bit more background on when these programs were established, to give you a little bit of the historical perspective. And so you can see what their sort of total appropriations and their award portfolios look like. So if we look at our oldest legacy program here for the neuroscience portfolio, that's the neurofibromatosis program that's been around since fiscal year 1996. And you can see it's had a total appropriation of over $360 million. Currently, through FY20, they've been managing over 451 awards. Likewise, we have programs running the gamut, and our most recent program is the Epilepsy Research Program, which is focused on post-traumatic epilepsy research. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But as you can see, the total appropriations are all listed here in millions. The total number of awards are listed here. And you can see that each program has a different funding level. And again, these are determined by Congress and those special interest dollars. And they can fluctuate year to year. These are the FY21 appropriation levels. And as we've been saying throughout the presentations, we don't have the FY22 appropriations yet. We'll have those once the appropriations are signed into law. So let's go and talk a little bit about each one of these in a little bit more depth. I can give you a little bit more information about the program's priorities and their mission, their vision, to sort of give you a flavor of each one of these programs. Again, I highly recommend that you look at our website, the CDMRP website, as there is a lot of really good information, including more details about some of the projects that have been funded in these programs on the website. So first, let's talk about the Alcohol, Substance, and Substance Abuse Disorders Research Program. So this has been around since fiscal year 2010. They have a total appropriation of about $28 million, which has gone into funding two consortia. It's really focusing on improving the clinical outcomes of alcohol, opioid, and other substance use disorders. As you may be aware, both alcohol abuse and substance abuse are issues that not only touch our military service members, but are really prevalent in the American public as well. For FY21, the focus of the program has been to really be looking at treating opioid abuse and opioid use disorders. And there are some differences with, how these disorders manifest and can be treated in individuals with different psychological health comorbidities, such as PTSD. They're also looking at ways that they can really extend the usefulness of some of these treatments, including some of the fentanyl analogs, to encourage compliance to these, so to these medications that may be replacing some of the substances that are being misused. Really looking for new immunotherapies or other therapies to combat alcohol use disorder, and to try and figure out what can be done to prevent relapse, to reduce the risk of misuse, and to kind of really encourage that compliance to a treatment regimen. I'm going to move on to the next program. I'm going to talk more about the amyotrophic lateral sclerosis program, which, because I am not gifted at saying that 3 times fast, I'm going to shorten to ALS. So the ALS Research Program was really looking to improve treatment for individuals with ALS and eventually find a cure. And so the way that they're doing that is really focusing on innovation and impact in the research treatments. And so looking to develop those new treatments and treatment avenues for folks with ALS. So the way that the program is sort of focused is its organization of the priorities are looking at preclinical treatment discovery. So really in that discovery phase, looking for new potential small molecules or other types of therapeutics that can address the mechanisms of ALS. Moving that along the translation spectrum, really looking to translate the preclinical findings and validate those treatment findings to move them into clinical development. So the focus is very much forward-facing, looking to get these treatments to the folks that it's going to impact as soon as possible. And you can see they've had some successes. So some of these have been not only antibody-based therapies, but some stem cell-based therapies, as well as new treatments and new combinations of existing treatments that really have kind of pushed the therapeutic benefit forward for individuals living with ALS. And so you can see that they've had a large focus on drug discovery and drug development. Again, really trying to get that impact to the person with ALS as soon as possible. For the Autism Research Program, their vision, I love it because it's so simple and it's so impactful, which is to improve the lives of individuals with autism spectrum disorders now. And I love the urgency because they really are a program which is using that urgency to push forward. So they're really looking at improving understanding of ASD, the autism spectrum disorders, really looking how that can impact not only the person with ASD, but their families and their communities and societies. So the program really is prioritizing looking at effective treatments and interventions. So sometimes you think of a treatment as only being a drug-based modality. No, they're expanding this out to other treatment modalities and multiple treatment modalities to really make sure that they're finding things that can really help someone now. They are also forward thinking in that a lot of individuals diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder are children of service members. And these beneficiaries obviously can cause quite a strain when you have a higher needs child at home while you're trying to serve your country. But then that sort of struggle doesn't go away as that person matures into adulthood. So the ARP is really looking at what needs does a person have as they transfer into adulthood, as they try and become more independent, and how can that be supported? What research needs to be done to kind of support that area? And again, the key point that I also want to bring up is because CDMRP is so consumer focused and continues to move forward, you can see that within the autism program, that there's a really heavy involvement in thinking about the people who are affected, not just the person who may have the autism spectrum disorder, but those who are caring for individuals. And so that support is there for that community, because it really does take a community to support that type of caregiving. And of course, a key feature of this research program is trying to understand signs, mechanisms, causes, the molecular underpinnings of autism. You can see here, I apologize, this is a little bit small, but as Akwiya said, we really wanted to make sure that you had some reference material to give you a little bit of an idea of each program's sort of unique attributes and unique focus and sort of intent. And so what I've done here is I've given a little breakdown of where the program has sort of focused its areas of interest. You can see there are therapeutic targets, biomarkers, there's behavioral therapies, complementary and alternative medicines, and transition to independence, as well as pharmacological and healthcare provided training as well. So a lot of different, you can see there's quite an array of investment in a lot of different areas to really, again, speak to that mission of improving the lives of individuals with ASD now. So going on to the next slide, so this is the Duchennes Muscular Dystrophy Research Program. So the program is intending to preserve and improve the quality of life and extend lifespans of individuals with Duchennes muscular dystrophy. And so to do that, they're focused on therapeutic and device development to really push those into effective clinical testing to meet that goal of improving and preserving the quality of life. So you can see on the program priorities, they're looking at both preclinical testing and clinical trials, looking at the preclinical stage, really looking for accelerating those promising therapeutic ideas and getting those ideas into clinical application, and really advancing the basic research to feed into that preclinical drug discovery and target validation pipeline to really identify better therapeutics that can be pushed into clinical testing, but supporting that clinical testing as well. I just added a little diagram there for the manifestations of Duchenne's. You can see that they are myriad, from psychological health to muscle and endocrine systems. So you can see that there's an inclusive look at what it means to have this disorder and what they're trying to do to support individuals with this disorder. Like I mentioned earlier, the Epilepsy Research Program has been around since fiscal year 2015. So this program is really looking at post-traumatic epilepsy. And so what that means is, in general, is sort of following a traumatic brain injury, the epilepsy that can sometimes happen as a result of that brain injury. The vision of this program currently is that they're looking for a time when post-traumatic epilepsy can be managed effectively, or better yet, prevented. And so really to do that, where the stage of the field is right now is really in that sort of the mechanistic stage. There aren't great models of post-traumatic epilepsy yet. There are a lot of mechanisms that have been discovered for maybe childhood onset epilepsy or other types of epilepsy that don't quite translate into that post-traumatic epilepsy space. So it kind of requires a unique understanding of both the traumatic brain injury field and an epilepsy field. So the interesting thing about this is that they're really kind of looking at it from several different angles. So the priorities of the program for FY21 to really be into that innovation space, looking for the new sort of ideas and new thoughts that could maybe give us better insight into mechanisms and treatment modalities. Additionally, there's not a lot of information, as is true with several post-TBI complications you might look at. The sort of long-term outcomes for some of these things are not very clear. It's not entirely clear if you have a TBI, what makes it like, what's the likelihood you're going to have post-traumatic epilepsy? And so there's a lot of longitudinal and epidemiological studies going on, combined with biomarker studies that the program's focusing on to really try and understand what that space looks like, so we can better support service members who have traumatic brain injury and then this onset of post-traumatic epilepsy, and trying to understand what those connections are. That space is still really a priority for this program. And the other part of the program that they're focusing on is yes, there's work that needs to be done to address the post-traumatic epilepsy sort of gaps in the research field, but also there are individuals living with post-traumatic epilepsy right now. So what can we do to support those individuals? What can we do to enhance their quality of life and to support their caregivers as well during the post-traumatic epilepsy, you know, when they have these periods, and when there's you know, as they're dealing with activities of daily living and so forth. So you can see, again, I apologize for the text being a little bit small. Again, you are going to have these slides for your own personal reference, so you can blow it up to your heart's desire. But you can kind of see where the portfolio the program has invested some of its past research dollars. And again, that is is into some of that basic mechanistic science, looking at some of the pathobiology and pathological mechanisms associated with post-traumatic epilepsy, detecting and diagnosing, again, looking for biomarkers, and really trying to understand the epidemiological piece of why is it likely one person will get post-traumatic epilepsy following TBI versus somebody who does not but still had a TBI. So these are all these are the. Oh, I'm sorry. I think we have a hot mic. Okay, so I'll keep going. Again, I think somebody.
Yeah, so I would see like the golf event as being not the signature event, but more as like a fill-in network, not even fill-in, that's not the right word, more like a networking fun event.
Excuse me, I think we have a hot mic. If you wouldn't mind muting yourself, that would be great. Yeah. Thank you so much.
But we didn't even hit our max, did we? Oh, we did. Okay.
So I'm going to go on and talk about the Gulf War Illness Research Program. So the Gulf War Illness Research Program is has
right, good.
Mission of improving health
so much, Nicole. I really appreciate
and lives of veterans who have Gulf War illness. They are aiming to do this by really looking to identify effective treatments, improve diagnosis, and really better understand the disease, the symptoms, and the pathobiology. So there's a couple of ways that this program, which is the largest funder for Gulf War illness research across the landscape, has done this. So they have two very successful efforts I'll talk about. Their Boston Biorepository recruitment and integrated network system. So this is a system that has a coordinating center, but 4 resource sites. It's got a steering committee, and what they're really looking at is finding ways to better coordinate biorepositories, so tissue collection for folks who have had Gulf War illness, as well as recruiting them into clinical trials and other opportunities to better serve and do research in the Gulf War illness area. You can see that I put the link for more details here in case anybody was interested. They're also, this is a great resource. They have a lot of tools for researchers who are interested in utilizing some of these resources to supplement and leverage their own research. So I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that in addition to just funding straight research projects, CDMRP is also interested in funding these large efforts that can help leverage the field forward in leaps and bounds and provide some of these resources to better equip researchers to answer the questions that they have, particularly in this case about Gulf War illness. So moving to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Multiple Sclerosis Research Program. So the Multiple Sclerosis Research Program has a number of strategic goals and focus areas, really looking to prevent, cure, reverse, or slow the progression of MS and lessen not just the personal impact to the individual with MS, but also the societal impact. And that can be extrapolated to mean the community, that person's community, their caregivers and family. So the strategic goals of the program are aligned with a focus area being something that we term, these are often found in the funding announcements. And so those are things that you'll want to watch out for as you thoroughly read the funding opportunities. The strategic goals for the MSRP are to understand, measure, and treat relapsing and progressive aspects of MS. Looking at neuroprotective strategies, neuro repair and functional restoration to really help with that, address that symptom burden and maybe reduce that so we can improve quality of life. And again, as with a lot of these programs, we still have fundamental research questions about the underlying causes, mechanisms, and pathophysiology associated with these conditions. So particularly with MS, that's still a focus area. risk factors and other sorts of factors that can really impact the progression of disease. So you can see that I've correlated here the investment with the strategic goal area and the focus area. Additionally, you can see that sort of the type of award, so whether it's a drug development award, a diagnostic or prognostic type of award, that more mechanism-based, or a methods or models development award. You can see the breakdown of the MS portfolio as it stands. And again, read the focus areas very closely, because that will give you guidance towards the intent of the program and really what it is they're looking for moving forward. Next, I'll talk about the neurofibromatosis program. So this is a program which, again, I had mentioned has been around since fiscal year 1996. The program is looking to decrease the clinical impact of neurofibromatosis. So really what that is looking towards, again, understanding, diagnosing, and treating not just NF1, but NF2 and schwannomatosis as well. Again, another word that I probably can't say repeatedly in any sort of reliable fashion. But again, as you'll notice, CDMRP is very consumer focused, and many of our missions, including the mission of the neurofibromatosis program, is really looking to enhance the quality of life for individuals with these disorders. So again, we've got a really consumer impact focused program. So for the priorities for NF, you can see the clinical manifestations of just NF1, NF2 as well are down here. For your reference, you can kind of see where the program is considering, how they think about the clinical impact of this disease. So what the program is really looking for and what they focus on is innovation and new ideas in that sort of basic and exploratory research category. Again, looking for new ways to think about the underlying causes and mechanisms of the disorder. Again, and then we want to move this along towards impact. So they're, again, focusing down through the research spectrum to testing potential therapeutics, making sure that critical areas of NF are being supported, those gaps are being identified, and the program is supporting those gaps. And the other angle that the program is focusing on is making sure that the field is equipped to meet the needs of the research. So making sure that capacity is present and supporting investigators, making sure that there are resources and resource support, supporting consortium and collaborations as well. So really taking not just a translational approach to NF, but also thinking holistically about the field and supporting individuals and resources needed to complete that research. Move on to the next program. So this program's had a couple of different names. And so right now it's currently known as the Neurotoxin Exposure Treatment Parkinsons Research Program. So this is to really understand Parkinson's disease development and to look for treatments that can kind of go towards towards a cure. And so the program is sort of focusing on looking at biological mechanisms of Parkinson's associated neurodegeneration, looking at exposures or deployment or environmental or occupational exposures and how that plays into the risk and the development of PD. And then understanding mechanisms of the symptomatic attributes of PD, including cognitive and psychiatric issues, kind of focusing on the non-motor aspects of PD versus the motor forward symptoms. They also are focusing towards that end on synaptic biology and circuitry to really, again, looking at this mechanistic impact. and trying to figure out better ways to intervene, really addressing more of that biological mechanistic insight needed to push the field forward. Again, you'll see that the portfolio balance is here. There's quite a bit in the pathobiology, cell biology, and neuroscience. About 3/4 of that portfolio is again focused on that foundational research needed to really understand neurotoxin exposures and the relationship to Parkinson's, as well as the neurodegenerative and pathophysiological aspects of Parkinson's disease. With a decent investment going towards therapies targeting Parkinson's after neurotoxin exposure. The last program I'm going to talk to you about is the program that I actually manage for CDMRP. One of them. This is the peer-reviewed Alzheimer's Research Program. So the vision of the Alzheimer's Research Program is to really look at the consequences of traumatic brain injury and military service as they pertain to Alzheimer's disease, as well as Alzheimer's disease-related dementias. So the way that the program approaches this is looking in a few priority areas. So foundational research, diagnostics and prognostics, and epidemiology. Again, similar to that post-traumatic epilepsy, there's a wealth of information needed to understand the risk factors and other factors which affect long-term consequences of traumatic brain injury, tending towards the Alzheimer's or Alzheimer's-like dementias. There's a lack of clinical studies, a paucity of clinical studies has been a focus for the program, as well as that family and caregiver support. I'm sure several of you are familiar with just how difficult it is to care for someone with dementia. And as I'm married to a veteran, I like to say that caring for a veteran, even without dementia, can sometimes be quite tricky. So it adds another layer of complexity when you're thinking about caregiving for individuals with dementia and veterans with dementia. You can see that DoD beneficiaries really make up the bulk of the folks with AD and ADRD in the military. And again, this is incredibly tiny. I do apologize. I wanted to make sure it was on there for you. But the bulk of the portfolio for the peer-reviewed Alzheimer's Research Program has really been in that sort of basic science, foundational research space, and then sort of split evenly amongst diagnostics, prognostics, again, looking at that biomarker and longitudinal component, with the family care, caregiving, and quality of life support being the rest of that portfolio. So now I'm going to move on to the non-neuroscience, but neuroscience related programs. I want to give you just a bit of a flavor for this in the last couple of minutes. And so there are several what we like to call injury or rehabilitation research programs that are also very closely aligned to neuroscience. So we have chronic pain management, combat readiness medical. So that program is focused on making sure that the force is ready for any medical mission that it may need. And so speaking to that could be, some of these polytraumas and traumatic injuries that are related. There's hearing restoration, and there are a couple of programs that have a variety of topics under them, including peer-reviewed medical has several neuroscience topics. Joint Warfighter Medical also does fund neuroscience or neuroinjury related research. There's a spinal cord injury research program, the traumatic brain injury and psychological health program, as well as the vision research program. And so now I'm going to stop screen sharing. I do want to again point out, for more information, please go to our website. That's where we post our pre-announcements, our funding opportunities. This is where you can find more information about the intent of the programs and really what those programs are looking at and focusing on. I'm going to go ahead and end my screen share so I can see any questions. I'm happy to take any questions, and thank you so much for your attention. Okay, so I see a question asking about chronic fatigue syndrome in 2021. So as to your question as will this be included also in 2022? So that's under the peer-reviewed medical research program. That is, those topic areas are determined by Congress, and as of right now, we don't have an absolute yay or nay answer on whether or not those would be that would be included as a topic area for FY22. And Donna, feel free to jump in for any of these questions if you wish.
There's another question, Sarah, that I think you might be able to answer about AD and autism.
I'm going to confess that I don't know all of the particulars about the autism funding announcements and how they differ from the NIH. I can tell you for the AD announcements, how we differ from the NIH and the NINDS and the NIA is that we are really, we have a smaller appropriation, and so we focus down a lot more on the priority areas that I mentioned. And so we will have specific focus areas in each. In the funding announcements, they are pretty different from the ones that I've read from the NIH and the NINDS. Again, there may be some overlap, but that is part of our job, is to make sure that we mitigate any overlap between our fellow funders. So we have a really good relationship with our colleagues at the NIH for that very purpose.
Sarah, I can speak a little bit to autism.
Thank you.
Autism has been a member of the Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee for many, many years now. And so we coordinate with them to ensure there is not overlap with the NIH. The Autism Research Program for many, many years has had a smaller appropriation than it has now. So it's been focused down on some things like the idea of there is demographic issues, demographic disparities as far as giving people care that have autism, as well as the idea of transitional issues once someone is, grows out of the system. How can we help them, as well as family related caretaker related issues. They have, though, always tried to fund clinical trials, and they do fund clinical trials of things that can be a little bit out there. I remember a couple of years ago, they were doing something with, I think it was broccoli, but I'm not 100% sure. So they will do things that are complementary type of alternative medicines as well. So they do try to do things that are a little bit out there, and you question whether or not they can work. And mainly that's because of the fact that you'll see many parents are trying whatever they heard about on the internet. So bringing that information in and actually putting it through scientific rigor is an important part of that. I think part of the question was SBIR related. Like Aquia said earlier on, the SBIR STTR is a separate entity for under the command for the and not part of CDMRP. So I strongly suggest you go to the STTR SBIR website to get information regarding what they are looking for, because they do have topic areas on a yearly basis. Over.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. I'm happy to stick around for a couple of minutes should any last minute questions come in. But again, thank you so much for your attention. And it has been a pleasure sharing a little bit about CDMRP with you this afternoon. Thank you.